Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show. My name's James, and Clayton is a very happy man this morning because his team has already knocked Real Madrid out at the quarterfinal stage of the Champions League. Will the men be able to repeat the women's job in a few weeks' time? How are you, Clates?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, like you said, great night at the Emirates last night, and yeah, I've been to watch the women a few times, but like obviously nowhere near as much as the men. But yesterday was my favourite night when I've gone to watch them. The atmosphere was great. There was less people than I thought there'd be, to be fair. But yeah, if anyone that isn't aware, like we'll get into it in a bit. But yeah, overturned a deficit which I didn't think they would, and yeah, just really, really good night for the Arsenal ladies.
Yeah, I think this is going to be rather more of a positive show for you, maybe more so than myself. We're going to be talking about the first couple of England games under Thomas Tuchel. Clayton does have a massive man crush currently on Tommy Tuchel. We'll be talking about that and maybe England. We're talking about Trent. I think we now know football's worst kept secret is going to be heading off to Real Madrid by the looks of it. We're going to cover off one of the losing topics from the People's Poll because I think me and Clayton want to do it, and we're going to try and keep it somewhere under 5 hours long. No, it will be shorter than that. Should winning be all that matters to football fans? Eurofocus this week takes us to Slovenia. And on this day, Thomas Tuchel is not the only man to manage England for the first time in March. But go on then, Clates. Talk about Arsenal's success in the Women's Champions League quarter-final last night, mate.
Yeah, so through to the semi-final. I think I read it's either the seventh or the eighth time in their history. They've obviously won the competition before, so like their European pedigree compared to the men anyway is outstanding, to be honest. And
When did
yeah,
they win
so
it?
I can't remember, but I know they have. Because again, I remember I was reading like preview pieces when I was going to the game yesterday and stuff. And yeah, I'd need to check it, but
I'll check
I
it
know
for
they
you
have.
while you talk.
Okay. But yeah, for anyone that isn't aware, so Arsenal were playing Real Madrid in the would have been the quarterfinal, and they were 2-0 down after the first leg. The first leg was out in Madrid, not at the Bernabeu, and that was quite controversial amongst the women's game and stuff. But yeah, going into the game yesterday, I actually met one of my friends as a journalist in the women's game, and she was covering the game for UEFA. So I met her just before the game, and she obviously spoke to the manager. And it's funny, there was just this feeling of like positivity and optimism, and I couldn't work out if that was just blind faith or anything because I personally didn't think they were going to do it. But my God, like it, first half, it was relentless. I think Real Madrid maybe had one shot, and I may be getting my halves confused here, but like the one shot in the first half, I don't think was anything like it wasn't a big chance or anything. And I remember the Arsenal keeper did make a good save at some point in the game, but like first half, I don't know how Arsenal weren't 1-0 up. It was relentless. Like Leah Williamson's passing from the back was just unbelievable. Just constantly getting into the final third, creating like good openings, good opportunities. Had one really good. Sounds like the men had one really good opening from a set piece. Should have scored from a corner. But to be honest, went into half time and I was thinking, how is this 0-0? But despite that, despite being 0-0 on the night, we were 2-0 down, right? And I think going into the game, like I said, I didn't think we would actually do it. But despite being 2-0 down on aggregate and 0-0 at half time, I felt, oh, we're going to do this. Like I was messaging my mate, the journo, at halftime. And I said, early goal here and it's on. And I mean, let me check what minute the actual goal. Yeah, it was literally straight after halftime. 46th minute, Russo scored. Then 3 minutes later, there was another goal. And then 59th minute, it's 3-0. Russo scores again. And then I can't remember the order of minutes where things happened, but Russo had the goal, had the ball in the back of the net twice more. I think they were ruled out for offside, maybe, but it was so dominant. It was outstanding. And to be honest, the only squeaky bum moment came like right at the end, ironically, where Real Madrid were on the counter. And I think with better decision making, they could have, should have made, they could have, should have put it in the back of the net. But unbelievable night. I think the atmosphere, the attendance was 23,000, which they
Oh,
said,
really?
yeah. So that I
I
think
thought
is,
it'd be full.
well, that's what I thought.
I'm not criticizing anyone, by the way. I'm sure there's a
No,
reason behind that.
well, I think I, I mean we spoke about pricing on was it Tuesday's pod? I don't know if that was a factor. My ticket was 17, 18 quid, which I was happy to pay. I thought that was pretty good value for a quarterfinal personally. But I don't know if it's one of them, like a lot of whenever I've been to women's game, it's more families, young children, like it's a school night, right? I don't know if that was a factor
Yeah, I hear
maybe,
you.
but they did say at the quarterfinal stage, that was a record attendance. So like it was still received with great positivity. But like I've been for the North London derby on a weekend when it was a full sellout and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
I personally was a bit surprised as well. But I'm not as engaged as a regular match going fan within the women's game to be able to have like a very informed opinion. But yeah, great night. And it was just the environment and the atmosphere was great. It was just a really good energy. Like the atmosphere was great. The players were great. Just very, very good performance. Like it was outstanding, to be honest. I was so impressed with what they did. And again, I think caveated by the expectation led belief of I didn't think we were going to do it either. So I think that made it even better.
I'm going to ask. I'm surprised by that attendance. I don't mean it offensively to anybody. I just know Arsenal's women's team is so well supported. Like if we had 22,000 at White Hart Lane for any Tottenham women's game, that would be like a great attendance. But I'm surprised that you said that because I know that they've been full so many times. I don't think that's obviously not an expensive ticket per
I
se. I
don't
think
think
it's
so.
probably more your point what you said about school night. I think, yeah, it's probably it again coming back to schedules of a lot we discussed on Tuesday. I guess if the game had been 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon or something, there'd be a lot more people there. I'm guessing probably.
I wonder how much of it was, again, taking conclusions from the men's game. Remember, Arsenal battered PSV 7-1, so second game was a lot of spare tickets. I wonder if it was the flip side of this, of people thinking, oh, we're
Thought they
2
wouldn't
0.
do it.
Yeah, 2-0 down, not going to bother. Like, I wonder if Arsenal were 2-1 up, or if it was 1-0 or something, my hypothesis would be there'd be more than the 23,000 in there.
You said the atmosphere was good. Would you have felt the same if it was a men's game?
No, but it's a different game, isn't it?
No, I get that. Again, I'm not being critical.
No.
There's a separation, but the atmosphere at women's games is far more just pure positivity, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
Quite
just
a
a
lot
lot
of the
more
time.
pleasant, to be honest. It's quite refreshing.
I hadn't planned for this to be part of the conversation, but I think this is quite interesting actually. So you won the Champions League in 2006-07.
Ah, is that when it was? Okay.
Yeah. And if I tell you the quarter finalists, probably make your jaw drop a little bit. So I think the other quarter finalists currently Man City lead Chelsea 2-0. Leon went through last night. I forget against who. You might know better, but they
Can't
they
remember.
comfortably. I think you're playing Leon in the semi
We
final,
are,
aren't
yeah.
you? And City or Chelsea will play Barcelona.
So Leon
Almost
beat Bayern
definitely
Munich.
beat Bayern. Yeah, thank you. Barcelona lead Wolfsburg 4-1 from the first leg, so it's highly likely to be Barca for City or Chelsea. So big clubs, and we know a few of them like Wolfsburg and Lyon have got really good pedigree in women's football over the last decade or so. The quarter-final teams from the 06-07 season. I don't know how to pronounce some of these.
That's going to be me later with Eurofocus.
Kolbotn
Okay.
from Norway, Frankfurt. I don't know if that's Eintracht Frankfurt. It just says Frankfurt. Systrom from the Netherlands, Umia from Sweden, Bromby, we know from Denmark, Turbine Potsdam from Germany. And in the quarterfinals, this is going to get me killed by our patrons. You played an Icelandic team called Breidablik.
At him, patrons.
So you beat Breidablik 9-1 in the quarterfinal. You then, this is on aggregate, you then beat Bromby 5-2 in the semi final on aggregate. And you beat Umia 1-0 in the final on aggregate. Looks like it was two legs. Umia had beaten Kolbotn from Norway 11-1 on aggregate in the semi final. And they'd won their quarterfinal 11-3 on aggregate. And Swedish women's teams have notoriously been quite strong. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
That tells a lot about the growth of, and
big
it's
time.
nothing against these teams, but the professional growth of women's football, not just in this country, we focus on the WSL quite a lot, but actually just globally in the game. You've now got 8 big women's teams in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And I think their format's changing in line with the men's format, I think,
Okay.
next year, although it's going to be less teams.
Right.
I think it might be 20 or 24 or something. I think that's the plan anyway. Well done. I don't mind the women winning. It's just not the men. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, do you think the men will take any inspiration from what the women have achieved?
Possibly, yeah. I think the two, like Arsenal definitely has like a one club culture. And I don't know about the current manager's relationship with Arteta, but like I remember Eideveld and Arteta used to share insights and stuff quite a lot. And I know a lot of the men's players go and actively support the women. So yeah, I think so.
Okay. Let's move the conversation on to England. Do you want to talk about the man crush you've got on Thomas Tuchel first and foremost? What an incredible week for England, beating Albania and Latvia to nil, two clean
What
sheets.
where I don't disagree on the man crush. I'm just curious. Well, what point of my dialogue with you made you define it the man crush?
The bit where I said to you, you've got a man crush on him, and you went, "Yeah, I absolutely do." It was that moment.
Do you know what? I think it's driven out of respect more than anything. Like, so when he was Chelsea manager, obviously he was flipping Chelsea manager, right? So I'm immediately kind of biases and all of that. So I don't think I ever, well, why would I? I don't think I ever sat and listened to a press conference or anything, whereas he's England manager now, right? And I'm someone personally, I don't care about the nationality and this and that. I just want the best person in charge to get the best, yield the most out of the group of players we've got. And I'm behind him, to be honest. We'll talk about the games, but I think a lot of this kind of man crush is, yeah, it's driven out of respect. And it's like when I watch his presses, I watch Arteta's presses religiously, right? And I don't know. I've got this thing with Tuchel's presses with England, having watched I mean, he's only done what, two, three, four. I've watched three of them, and I don't know. He just speaks with so much clarity and insight, which I think is quite refreshing from a manager. Like, I don't think you get that level of openness and directness, but I think directness can often be misinterpreted as rude. And even when he was direct about like Rashford and Foden after the first game, I didn't interpret it as rude. It was just like an honest reflection and assessment, which I think most of us felt the same watching the game. So I think that's a lot of it. It's quite. And again, I think naturally comparisons to Gareth are going to come up. When I'm talking about Tuchel, I am not comparing anything to Gareth Southgate or trying to undermine what he did or anything. I'm literally just focusing on the present moment. What have I got in front of me? And I really like the way he speaks. I think there's lots of room for improvement in what we saw on the pitch, but it's the first two games, right? Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. So yeah, I don't know. It's just I found his approach to talking and sharing just really, really refreshing. And I think you can tell he's an elite manager. I think that's it. Sometimes like he's been there. He's won it at club level. Yeah, it's driven out of respect more than anything, I think. What about you? What's your assessment so far?
I mean,
You don't share the same man crush?
no, 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 no. I sound like I'm taking a piss and I'm against him. Not at all. No, I'm very pro Thomas Tuchel at the moment. I mean, there's nothing to analyse ultimately
Agree.
at this stage. It is probably more that how he's speaking. I liked his comment about the weight of the shirt. I thought that was really good. Oh, is it the weight of the shirt? For those who haven't seen it, he got asked about the England shirt and if it weighed players down. He's like, no, just I felt the shirt is quite light.
Yeah,
And I just thought that was great.
it's
It
quite
was like,
funny.
because do you know what it was? It was like, no one's going to ever ask that question again for as long as you're here. It's like, it's a great answer. He did also have this really interesting comment he said about how basically England didn't play with a philosophy at the Euros,
But even that,
which was very damning, but it came off all right.
yeah, but I think he was asked the question, right? He didn't go out of his way to shit on the last regime. I think he was just asked the question directly: Did England have a clear
No,
playing
but he
style last
could
time?
have just batted it and said, I'm not really too interested in what happens at the pass. I'm more focused on mine. And he's not saying anything about it. That's
Yeah, fair.
probably more the media line that people would give rather than he was like, and then he went on, didn't he? He was like, yeah, there's no patterns of play and stuff like that. I was like, fucking hell, we nearly won it, Tommy.
But did you disagree with anything he said?
No, not overly. I think it kind of went to shit at the end. I mean, what I did think mainly watching England this week was that, yeah, this probably should be Gareth Southgate's last tournament.
Yeah, it
I
didn't.
couldn't see a lot of differences.
No,
There were a couple of clear, obvious things. One is a 4-3-3 system, and it is rather more of a 4-1-4-1 than a 4-2-3-1. I think Curtis Jones played really advanced on the Friday night, even more so. I think it was a tactical tweak in the second half to push him on even further. And Morgan Rogers obviously played that role, I think, absolutely fine in the game on Monday night. Wingers staying high and wide. It intrigued me that he changed Bowen and Rashford to their less natural sides in the second half. And I think that was because ultimately a lot of the crosses in the first half were in swing and he wanted players to hit the line.
he said that in his post match. Actually, he just said it was the
Okay.
angle. Yeah,
Yeah. That doesn't surprise. That was the only logical reason to do it because Bowen on the left particularly feels a little bit uncomfortable. We've seen Rashford a lot on the right. That's fine. So tactically there wasn't anything, but also to judge it on the two games is. And for me, that's more, and this is going to be an ongoing problem for England, is our interest in this.
What do you mean, sir?
Because I wasn't bothered. I watched the two games, but to be honest, I only watched the two games because I knew that you and I would be sitting here today talking about it.
Interesting.
Friday night, fine, because Albania, they've been in tournaments, fine. The interest in that Monday night, I never cheered for any of the England goals. So ultimately, I knew that England were going to win those two games to nil.
So that's interesting. My I felt incredibly detached from England after the Euros and probably stopped watching a few games. And I don't know if a lot of this was just the newness of a new manager. I was quite excited to watch Friday actually. My excitement faded during the games, but I think a lot of it was. I think also we need to be careful what we take away from what we watch against low blocks. Like I've seen it with Arsenal. We'll see, like playing a low block is hard, man. Like I think my thing with England in I know I said I'm not going to compare, but I'm going down and comparing now. My frustration with England in previous tournaments has been I thought when teams play us, we've got players that are capable of exploiting weaknesses and stuff. I think we'll see more of that, in my opinion, with this manager as he has more time with them, and we play teams that actually come and play us. I think like it's really difficult to break down a low block as we saw against Albania and Latvia. So I think we should be careful how much we take away from just facing one style of opponent. I hope we have a qualifier or a friendly against a pretty decent team that has a philosophy where they want to play as well.
Not so much with Albania. I think if England played Albania 10 times, I think there's a couple of times Albania will cause a shock in there, actually. How many times out of 100 would England play Latvia and you think Latvia get a result
Uh,
at Wembley?
Once, twice. I mean, there was one counter attack where they,
It was a little bit of a cock up between Mark Gay and Jordan Pickford, but just thought it just sort of raised the tempo a little bit. It might have even brought more nerves into their display defensively. I'm watching the game and I don't even know to equate, and this isn't meant disrespectfully to Latvia because it'd be a number of other countries. And actually, it was nice it was Latvia because it's a team we haven't played before, so at least it was a
oh, is that
different
right?
nation. Yeah, it's the first time we played them. I think Sam Matafei said on commentary there's only three teams left. I think England haven't played a part of the UEFA qualifying. One's a new team, which Gibraltar. I think we've never played the Faroe Islands, strangely, and there's one other team I forget escapes me as well. And that's probably the only line I listened to from Sam Matterface during the course of the commentary for clarity. But that's a very low level.
Oh
I
yeah.
was I was trying to think during the game if a League One team would play England that way.
I don't know. What did you think when you thought of that?
And then I was trying to think, what if you look at some of the players on the pitch and think, if a League One team did play this England, like could the League One team in like a cup environment cause a shock? Well, we see it happen, don't we? So we know that it's kind of possible. And I was thinking, it's like a Latvia lower than this level, and it's like there's a whole week of no football, and I'm watching England play with all due respect this standard. And England in June, England got one qualifier in June. It's against Andorra. It's the reason I had a haircut last night.
I was going to say, yeah, beard's looking good.
I almost want jeopardy
Yeah.
in a weird way. I want to feel nervous about England qualifying. And it's to England's credit that since 2008 and then probably the 2010 qualifiers against Croatia, England have pissed it. Pissed all the qualifiers comfortably. And we went through a period where we didn't. Is that us getting stronger, or because we always say, oh, the quality of these teams are getting harder to beat. They're all coached well defensively. Albania and Latvia were both coached very well, I thought, defensively,
Yeah,
right? They
agree.
both defended fine. Who wants to watch it?
Oh
I
yeah,
think
no.
I think it's a huge problem for qualifying because obviously that's 48 teams qualify. And then you check back and you say, so what happens if England don't win this group? Okay, we're going to the playoffs. And we also, even if we finish third, we won the Nations League group in Group B, didn't we? So even if we finish third, we'd still have a playoff. So there's no jeopardy at all. There's no jeopardy until the end. And the chances are with this group, Albania, okay, but it will come down to the two games against Serbia. And realistically, across the two games against Serbia, we might draw over there. We might even draw at home to them, but we'll probably do the job.
This tells you everything you need to. I don't even know who our qualifying opponents are, to be honest. I only know until we rock up and play. I just want to say one final thing before we move on to the next one, which may give you your segue. I just want to say, obviously, as an Arsenal fan, how proud I am of Miles Lewis Skelly as well. Like, when you
He was
see
great, mate.
yeah, like when you see an academy boy come through, especially the rise he's had this season. I think in the summer everyone was talking about Waneri. Miles Lewis Skelly was still in the conversations, but I think Waneri was being touted as the star, and he's obviously had an opportunity in an unconventional position to him, made it his own, like debut for the first team, playing in the Champions League, now playing and scoring for his country at 18 years old. And I think a lot of the media narrative around him has been really disappointing. So it's been nice to see that kind of shift and just him delivering on the pitch. So yeah, just when it's your player that's come through the academy, it just, yeah, you feel like a proud dad when you're watching stuff like that.
Yeah, like, he's really good. I've spoken to you about it a few times. I think he looks physically able, stronger than what his years are. I think he isn't the first fullback I've seen get into the England team at this age, and you're like, oh, he's going to be one of the best in the world. And then by 22, 23, it's over. And I'm not suggesting that's going to happen with him, but we should still be a little bit feet on the ground. Lewis Hall wasn't in that squad that's going to be
Yeah.
competitive. Luke Shaw isn't available. And Thomas Tuchel would certainly look like he's lent on experience. But he spoke very well about Lewis Skelly, and I think Lewis Skelly did absolutely great. His ability to move into midfield from left back was really nice to see, and he looks comfortable when he does it. Doesn't look like he's going to be dispossessed. I don't expect him to open doors from that position, but it adds a layer to England tactically that perhaps we haven't seen. One concern I have on what I have seen tactically from England, it's not a concern actually, because it's what I would want England to do against opponents like this, is press really high. The standard of opponent that England are going to face between now and ultimately highly likely qualifying for the World Cup is possibly not going to be that strong. And I don't know, A, if you're going to see how that press works against teams that can play through it. And B, I think that's all well and good doing it on a kind of mild night at Wembley in March. How you're going to do that in America in the middle of summer, I've got concerns about that. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't want England not to go and try and hunt the ball down as quickly as possible at the moment. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be able to be maintainable in the tournament. And one thing I'd certainly credit Tuchel for is his adaptability tactically. I've seen historically with Chelsea, so I know that it might be something that's for now. And we might get in the next tournament, in the next set of qualifiers, that he goes, right, this little camp here, we're going to play a back three. I wouldn't be surprised if he did so. I don't expect so, by the way, but it wouldn't surprise me. I just wanted to give a shout out as well for Ezri Konsa, because I thought there was particularly in the Albania game, who posed way more of a threat than Latvia. There were one or two moments was all, and he dealt with it seamlessly. And I think it was a bit of a surprise that he was in the team, maybe rather than Mark Gay. And I certainly think it was better that they played together on Monday night. But I thought that obviously Konsa covered really well against Switzerland in the Euros last year. And I just thought he was really comfortable and calm in moments that he needed to be. And sometimes in games like that, you can really lose your concentration. I just wanted to say that I thought he was absolutely spot on in that position. It was better with Gay on the Monday night.
Yeah.
Nice story with Dan Burn. Glad it happened. Cool.
Yeah, I actually watched
I
his
don't
press.
want to see that play against like Julian Alvarez next summer and
No,
stuff like that. I'll
I
be honest.
no, yeah, yeah, you said it. Really nice moment. Technically, I think there's probably better options, but he almost scored from a set piece, didn't he? But yeah, his presser was really nice. He's someone I've somehow never seen an interview with, but he's quite a funny, humble, down to earth
Dan
character.
Burn.
Yeah, I've somehow never
Did
seen
you
him.
not see the stuff pre-game?
That's what I'm talking. That's the first time
Oh
I've kind
yeah,
of
he
seen
came
him
across so
speak.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for all of his journey up the football pyramid, I've never seen any interview or content from him, but that was my first time seeing an interview with him, and yeah, he was great.
Also, shout out to Reece James, brilliant free kick.
Ha, unreal.
It was postage stamp stuff, wasn't it? And nice to see Reece James playing. He may not have done if Trent Alexander-Arnold would have been fit. Segue. Well done, James. I got there in the end. We knew this was happening, didn't we? I mean, it's kind of everything bar the here we go. He's going to Real Madrid.
I think so. Like you and I have spoken a few times about all three of them, right? Him, Salah, and Van Dijk, and I think you and I have been quite similarly aligned in thinking Trent was going to go and maybe the other two would stay. I don't know if you still feel the same.
We did a whole podcast on the three of them and pretty much said this, what we thought it
Yeah,
would be. And that was pre-Christmas.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what. Now that it's confirmed, I mean, do you have any reaction to the reactions?
I understand all aspects of it because I think ultimately, if your heroes are going, how you deal with that at first is to kind of lash out a little bit. And I think Liverpool are the top side in the country at the moment, right? So you think, well, we walking out for now is 1 point, but it is going to Real Madrid. Now, I get it. Liverpool will see themselves as, we spoke about it the other week, didn't we? About people saying they're the best team in Europe at the moment. I'm like, calm down. Well, the best team in Europe over the last decade has been Real Madrid, and in terms of what their output is, and I don't think it can be argued. And the opportunity to go there can happen for a number of reasons. One, there is a sporting aspect, but I don't think it is just I think I'll win more with Madrid than Liverpool. I think there is lots to add to the context of him being a man in his mid-20s who might just want to go and live in Spain for a few years. Who knows?
There's the commercials, there's the brand, there's
He
so yeah.
he did an interview a couple of years ago. He said, "I want to win a Ballon d'Or," and you can laugh at it, but he ain't going to do it at Liverpool.
His
He probably
percentage,
won't. He probably won't do it at Real Madrid either. But he has probably got a little bit more of a chance.
agreed.
Unbelievably, he thinks he's good enough to do that sort of thing. I think it's extremely unlikely that a right back would win the Ballon d'Or. Personally, I don't think. I know there's been a little bit of reaction of traitor from Liverpool fans. And some of the comments that's been made historically, I understand the anger. There have been things said that I want to do all this with Liverpool, I want to be a legend, etc., etc. I think Trent will know from players who've made the same move historically. Steve McManaman, Michael Owen was not for a lot of money because he only had a year left on his contract. And because of what happened with McManaman, I think Liverpool went, well, we've got to take a little bit of money now because this is going to happen for free next summer. Is a ploy Real Madrid have been doing for a really long time and are doing it more and more now about taking top players on free transfers, big signing on fees, etc., etc. So I understand the disappointment from Liverpool fans. I think some of the stuff that you see online, like burning shirts and stuff, I think, okay, it's a bit over the top.
Shit like that is always for show,
People,
in my opinion.
yeah, I know. If people want to go down a route and saying, well, because he's going, he's not going to be a legend of this football club now. That's up for Liverpool fans to make that decision. It's not for me to say otherwise. I think he's won everything at Liverpool. There's always more challenge for a club like that, but he's not walking out when you're close. He's going to walk out the door probably with the title in the bag, almost likely. And I think there's a lot more to it than just you have a local boy. I'm sure he does love Liverpool. I don't think that's changing. When you hear him speak, you know where he's from. There's no doubt about it. He comes across well. I think it's probably just ultimately when you get the offer from Real Madrid, it's a once in a lifetime, and you take it or you don't. And he's decided to take it.
Yeah, I feel similar to you. I think it's tricky because you don't want to tell Liverpool fans how to feel, right? And
No, not at all.
I mean, I'm sure you'll talk about it in a bit, but like you've obviously lived the kind of Harry Kane experience where not just did he leave, but for years it was a kind of talking point which probably pissed you off. Like when trying to think of academy players that left Arsenal. Like Ashley Cole's the obvious one, but like I was quite young to remember how I really felt at the time, and I think a lot of my opinion on that is based on other opinions, to be honest. Like Van Persie, Fabregas, Henry's, all of them. Like they weren't academy players. So when I speak about this thing, it's from a very different perspective. But like the one thing I'd say is like, have you heard of the 5 stages of grief? I think like the reaction is like I almost see that in people. It's it's like I think it's like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It's like you see a combination of all of that, and I think it's like it's okay to feel how you feel when it's an
Yeah.
academy player, but like I think rationally, logically, it's interesting. What one thing you said there is like, okay, within Liverpool, do they maybe look at themselves as like, yeah, they're the best team in the country? Are they set to go on? Like I'm not
I
necessarily
think
there with
there's
that.
more. I mean, look, well done for mentioning people like Harry Kane and not bringing Sol Campbell up, right? Let's get to it, right? My club went through the worst, right, in terms of player leaving on free transfer, right? Walked out to the enemy. Now, it's never going to get topped as worse. I don't think. Like, what could have Trent done here as worse? Well, if he'd have signed for Manchester United on a free transfer, I certainly, from my experience of what happened there with Tottenham, could understand Liverpool fans absolutely going batshit mental if that sort of thing happened because of the rivalry. If he went to Everton as well, he'd be like, hang on a minute, right? So obviously, that's the worst one that's probably never going to get topped. What you would have to say is, and I would have to acknowledge that the differences between Sol Campbell and Trent Alexander-Arnold now is Sol Campbell went for whatever his reasons were, but there were obviously sporting reasons as well, right? He wasn't going to succeed in the way that he believed he should at Tottenham. It's quite clear. Mid-table club, right? He was joining a team that was far superior and went on to achieve things at Arsenal. So the difference in terms of a comparison, that you can say, well, Tottenham are mid-table shit. Liverpool at the moment are the best team in the league. Why
Yeah.
leave? So I get that. I get
This
that
is where I have
aspect
an
of it.
opinion on that, where I'll come back when you're done.
Go on. No, 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 go.
Like Liverpool need a big rebuild in the summer, right? So like I don't think them doubling down on their success they're gonna have this season is a promise or a guarantee. Like that their rebuild may go great. I think they've got a fantastic obvious manager, but it's still a rebuild which has an element of unpredictability. It could go badly. Like and I think with
It
Real
could.
Madrid, yeah, with Real Madrid, again, there's no guarantee they'll win. But as you said, like who's the team over the
I,
last decade that's consistently,
I've
sustainably
said
demonstrated it?
we've already released our Money in Football podcast, and we spoke about Trent a little bit on that as well. And I said, Suj, not that I think it will happen, but is it beyond reason that Trent signed a new contract and Liverpool finished sixth next year and didn't qualify for the Champions League because maybe they don't get the rebuild right and maybe they have a season of injuries and stuff like that? I don't think that will happen to Liverpool, but it could. I can tell you now it will not happen to Real Madrid.
Why?
Well, it feels impossible for Real Madrid to finish lower than third in La Liga.
Yeah, yeah, fair.
It's the competitive of what's behind. You can't slip up in the same way here, I don't think. And it don't.
Yeah,
Madrid, Barca, and I think you can club Atletico in that. They're just so much stronger than everybody else. If you get like what Forest have done this year, he's sitting third, fourth at very best in La Liga. We had, was it Girona were doing really well for a long time last year? Like, what happened to
yeah,
them?
I think it was. Yeah, I mean, we played
They
them
got in the
match day.
Champions League. Well
Yeah,
done. That went well. That's part why England are definitely getting fifth place this year, by the way, as a consequence. Um, so you got more guarantees with Real Madrid from that perspective. Who knows? Maybe like him and Jude are like proper best friends, and he wants to go out there, and he's been told how great Madrid is, etc., etc. There'll be so many reasons why he goes. What I hope doesn't happen. And again, if Liverpool fans are angry and don't want to deem him as a legend in the future, that's fine. Again, that's up to them to decide. I do hope. I've heard people say he should get booed and stuff like that
I've
between now and
seen.
the end of
Yeah,
the season, and I think don't do that. Don't even taint your own brilliant football season, which
yeah,
Trent has been a part of. And I know Trent got a lot of criticism, and I did a whole piece on talking tactics about his performance against Manchester United in January, which was certainly questionable. Don't do that. Don't do that.
to be honest, while acknowledging Liverpool fans and saying like feel how you feel, like if I'm being completely honest to myself, I think it's a no-brainer. He's won everything there is to win at Liverpool. He's lived the dream as a boyhood fan. I think he's captained them on one or two matches, maybe. I think like it's funny when listing all these factors like is Jude his best man? It's fucking Real Madrid. Like I don't think it's. I personally don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah, I think Madrid and Barca look like they're perhaps in a process of heading back to what they were in like the peak of the Messi era and stuff like that. If those two clubs come calling, no matter where you're from, I think there's something to think about. So maybe let's put it on you, ask you a difficult question.
Go for
We're
it.
sitting here in 3 years' time and maybe Bukayo Saka's contract's running out and he will feel to you like Trent feel to a lot of the Liverpool people. How do you feel if he goes?
Well, I'd
Under the
like.
same circumstance, free transfer, no money for the club.
Yeah, and that's a good point we haven't touched on actually. But like, I'd like to think I'd feel heartbroken, but good luck to him. Like, same logic of like it's fucking Real Madrid, but like I'd be heartbroken. Like even you talking about it as a hypothetical just made me physiologically feel upset there. Like I could feel something in my chest. So I think that's how I'd feel. I hope that's how I'd process it as well. Like, I'd hope I'd never turn on him or anything. But yeah, I think the thing is, even to be honest, the transfer fee thing, like that's not on him, in my opinion. That's on the club. Like, I don't know what the conversations are, but like, it's not Trent's responsibility to yield a transfer fee for himself for the club, in my opinion. That should be on the executives, in my opinion.
Yeah, which can bring us back round to maybe even the Harry Kane
Yeah, go for it.
conversation. Now Harry Kane obviously left Tottenham for sizable money in the end, with 1 year left on his contract and a position where he was very clear with Tottenham is like, you can do what you want now, but I'm not signing a new contract. It's up to you to put the pressure on the club. The club made a decision that they should take the money rather than keep him for the additional year. I accept that. It's fine. It's also a little bit easier, I think, for me and what happened with Kane, because those who've listened to me for years will know the amount of times that I said, A, he needs to leave for himself because he's much better than this circus that's going on around him. And knowing that Tottenham are in that difficult position in a kind of PSR and growing environment where you can put all that money on your line, and I know Liverpool aren't getting that line, but the one thing you could potentially say back is we don't know what the circumstances last year in terms of, people say, oh, he's gone for free. Well, maybe Trent wanted to maybe even go last year and was refused the opportunity. We don't know. Maybe there was no offers. Maybe the club made a decision that actually trying to convince him in the last year was a better approach than selling him. And what the reaction with a new manager coming in and Jurgen Klopp going last summer, that might have been more difficult to take with Klopp going as well. So, I mean, what's the price of keeping Trent for this year? What would Trent have gone on the market last year? 70, 80, 1 year left on his contract? Like a lot of money, I'm
Mm.
going to guess. I'd said to Suj yesterday that I think, if he had like 5 years on his contract, because of what he is and what he's capable of, you are looking at potentially £100 million player because
Yep.
I know he's a fullback, but what he does is like uncomparable to anybody else in that position. We know he has his faults and stuff as well, but if you're going to Real Madrid, you ain't going to do it because you're the most solid right back in the world. You're joining the Galacticos, right? So I think that what's the price to Liverpool, the fact that they kept him this year? Well, who knows? Maybe if Liverpool had taken the money last year and on top of Slot going, maybe the whole environment would have been different this year and Liverpool wouldn't have won the league. So what's that value to you?
Yeah. Fair.
Trent's, who knows? Maybe Trent went, no, 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 I'm going to give you the year, or he wasn't allowed to leave. There's a lot of stuff that we wouldn't know.
On his flaws and stuff, I can't tell you why I think this with like facts, but I feel like his perception as a player will go up leaving England as well. I think his flaws won't be as magnified
No,
in
because we'll see the
Spain and
reels of the good stuff.
yeah, but like even Jude, right? Jude's one of the best in the world. Like he's got flaws which don't get magnified because he's not in England.
I can tell you one big flaw with Jude is he should have got sent off the other night.
I'm having a mind blank.
He got away with the second yellow, should have gone. He was so
Yeah, it was just on
lucky.
the touchline, wasn't it?
He was so lucky.
Yeah,
Such an against Latvia. What are you doing?
yeah. But yeah, I think with Trent, like I think his for all of his flaws as a right, like what he does from right back is generational. Like it's unbelievable what he can do with a football, and I think there's something about pairing that with this. We speak about aura and this feeling, the intangibles. That feels like that is just going to fit Real Madrid to a T. It just feels like a fit, and I don't know, like we speak about the Ballon d'Or thing. Is he going to do it? Probably not, but his percentage chance of doing it definitely goes up by just being around that environment. And I do think his reputation will be appreciated and improve. Not that it's
Also,
bad, but just by being in Spain as opposed to England.
is it beyond possibility or thought here that we fast forward 4 years and Trent ends up back at Liverpool?
Not at all. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's something I thought as well. Definitely.
He could
He's
come back
young.
to
He's a
Liverpool at
baby.
29, 30-year old, still give him another 4 or 5 years. I get it. I do get, particularly if you're a club the size of Liverpool, a player leaving is like, well, what are you leaving us for? I do get it. And it matters more because it's homegrown. If people don't want to think, oh, he's a club legend, or again, that's up to them to decide. I just think, to repeat what I said, I think the idea that he'll lift the trophy at the end of the season and people might boo, I think is, I,
It's
you don't
sad.
have to go wild for him if that's how you feel that strongly about it. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Anyway, I think the other thing is, I think we all knew it was going to happen. So some of the reaction has felt very over the top this week. Um, Winning clearly isn't all that matters to Trent. It might have played a part in his decision. I wanted to talk about something briefly, and we have to be careful here because me and Clates might end up going on forever. But when I was on my way back from Fulham a couple of weeks ago, obviously you'd played Chelsea at home at the same time. I got out of Fulham pretty quick, and I was like, "There's no other way of me getting home than going through Finsbury Park, so I'm gonna have to walk into this." And I was on the Victoria line. I had to change on the Piccadilly line at Finsbury Park, so I changed trains. I'm on my own. I think there's going to be gooners everywhere, and actually, it was quite quiet. Anyway, a couple of Arsenal fans get on, and one of the guys sits opposite each other on the tube. And on the tube, by the way, in London, for those who aren't familiar, you're actually not allowed to speak to other people on the tube.
Yeah.
Can get you killed. But they obviously, someone, oh, how you doing, mate? And they start talking about the game a little bit, and I'm obviously sitting there, yeah, whatever. And this other guy had obviously not been to the game. So, how'd you play? And the guy was like, it wasn't great, but winning's all that matters, isn't it? And I didn't have a problem with that because I think it can also be one of them that's like a throwaway comment. If for all he knows, he might be thinking what I think sometimes. I really want to end this conversation because this guy's clearly not into football that much, in the sense he doesn't know what the score is or anything like that. He might have just been a throwaway to be like, yeah, winning's what matters most. One, fine. But it did get me thinking about the consequence, particularly in with the state that Arsenal was in at that point. It's like, well, winning didn't matter to Arsenal that much that day. I get it. You'd had a number of games without winning. It's very unlikely you're going to catch Liverpool. It's very unlikely you drop out the top five. It was more probably from a morale perspective, coming on towards the Champions League quarterfinals and stuff. But actually, probably wouldn't have changed your life if you hadn't won. It wasn't all that mattered. In a weird way, maybe a really good performance in Arsenal being a little bit unlucky might have felt just the same afterwards. You thought, oh, Arsenal were much better the way they played today. Might have even mattered the same. And it got me thinking more about how much does winning matter? Should it be all that matters to football fans? Had a conversation on Clash of Correspondence yesterday with Ricky Saunders. He's like, Ange wins the Europa League or he's sacked.
Yeah, but that's the reality, isn't it?
And now there's been so much made about Ange and his philosophy and sticking to it. Ultimately, if he sticks to it, we probably don't win that tournament. If he changes and we win it, he might still have the job next year.
I mean, go on. It feels quite relevant to you in this minute.
I, I,
Where are you on that
I
statement?
think. Well, I think the answer to this is, without spending an hour on it, is that whether winning should be the most important thing to you as a football fan, ultimately is quite influenced by who you support.
Yeah, fair.
So I think if you are to use a Liverpool reference, a club of Liverpool size, you feel like you've got to be winning something all the time. Real Madrid will feel like that. It feels like for you, who's probably going to finish what, second 3 years in a row? Would that be
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It's beginning to feel like, okay, just get over the
Get
line,
over the
got to
line.
win
Yep.
something. Whereas if you take my club, 15 years without a trophy, feels like, yeah, winning's so important. But actually, what's another year?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at a party a few weeks ago and I met a Spurs fan. And we had like a really good conversation considering he's Tottenham, I'm Arsenal, and we've met twice in our lives. But he was speaking a lot about the Pochettino years, and we were speaking inadvertently about this, like, and what is important to you as a football fan. And I think you're right there. It's probably influenced by who you support, but I think it's like we all think differently, right? In terms of what energizes us, what makes us happy, this and that. And I think like how you interpret football is probably a combination of so many different factors in your subconscious. But like he was speaking about those years under Pochettino at Tottenham, like the best years he's ever had supporting Tottenham. I can't remember what he said comparing it to the 2008 Cup win, but it was clear from the way he was speaking. Like he was lighting up speaking about that period, and like even myself with Arsenal, like sure, like okay, what was the statement? Is winning all that matters? If you I think winning is the only. I was gonna say I think winning is the only way of defining success. I'm not sure. I think it's winning is the only thing people will remember in decades when you're talking about a period of success and longevity and like the Fergie years and all of that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's like as I'm getting older, I'm a bit more aware of like what makes me happy and like I just want to enjoy things, to be honest. And one day winning a cup out of 365 days a year, sure, that one day will be unbelievable. But a lot of my favorite memories, especially in this Arteta journey, hasn't been anything to do. Well, obviously, we won fuck all. There hasn't been anything to do with winning. And I don't know. Again, I think it comes down to individual people, to be honest, and what drives you. But I must say, though, I would be extremely sad if Arteta ends up going and we've ended up with just one FA Cup. More driven from I think, how I believe internally how great he is and what I think he'll be remembered as in 20 years' time. So that's what drives that. But in terms of his winning, that all that matters, to be honest, I guess I've answered my own thing there. I wasn't sure when you first asked the question, but I'd say to me, no, it's not.
You'd be heavily influenced by who you support, your upbringing. I think it's worth throwing in that most teams cannot win. Most teams start a Premier League. There's 20 teams. Most of them know they ain't winning it. How
Yeah.
many teams realistically at the start of next season do you think will generally think we're going to try and win the league?
Oh yeah, like at the start of the season, there's probably 5, 6 at a push that think that.
How many teams, therefore, then afterwards go, well, yeah, we can't do that. So I'll tell you what we'll do in the FA Cup. We'll play a completely rotated team and sack that off as well.
Mm.
Because the financial consequence of Premier League status and all that is there a coincidence that we've had, sorry to say it, three ship promoted teams this year and a lot of the kind of mid-table-ish teams have done quite well in the FA Cup this year? That they've felt safer. Is there a consequence of that? Might be, maybe. I don't think there's any way of like proving that or disproving that. Ultimately, a lot of the bigger clubs or the established European qualifiers obviously went out very early. If you support Leicester, you achieved the ultimate dream that you know probably will never be replicated again. We're gonna do stop going, give up.
No, Leicester fan. Well, maybe not this season, but Leicester fans still have joy in their days when they go to football. Like
Oh, but they don't at the moment,
that's
by
what
the
I just
way.
said.
But
No,
yeah,
maybe not this season,
yeah.
but yeah.
Let's give a better example then, right? Newcastle very recently won the trophy.
Yep.
Right. Remove that from your mind. What do you think of most when you think of Newcastle? And it might be a different answer to you to what it is for me.
Uh, I mean, the thing that I used to always hear of, like the how many years without a trophy. I don't really think of much when I think of Newcastle. What comes to mind? Not
That
much. Just
team that so nearly won the league in 95, 96 and should have won it.
right.
And ultimately, actually, in the end, didn't deserve to. It didn't score as many goals as people remember the entertainers. Go and look at the 95, 96 league table, and you'll be surprised when you look at the goals scored column at how many goals Newcastle scored. You will have to double check on yourself. You'll be like, is that it? But they were dubbed the entertainers. And if you ask a Newcastle fan, I think like, now you've won a trophy. Does the entertainers team like mean less to you? And that period under Keegan, where he took them back, remember they were kind of towards the foot of what is now the championship to nearly winning the league, and he didn't achieve a trophy in that period. Do they look back on it with any negativity, or is it different now? This is what a trophy truthfully means. Like they won't hold that team in the same regard. No, it's the same with you and your guy about speaking about Pochettino. I feel the same. If you ask me, right, go and relive the 2007-08 season. And by the way, I had some brilliant forwards in like Robbie Keane and particularly Dimitar Berbatov. We had some good players. Relive that season or relive the final season at White Hart Lane where you finished second, you didn't win anything. I'm picking that final season at White Hart Lane every single time without a shadow of a doubt. But
And
you know
I,
what?
oh god,
We didn't lose all that season. So ultimately, was that a lot of winning as well?
yeah, but oh yeah, possibly. But I'd argue a lot of it was the style. Like even if I can remove my Arsenal hat on now and just look as a football fan rewatching that Tottenham time, like Tottenham team. Sorry, yeah, you were an exciting team to watch. Yeah,
The biggest thing for me in football isn't winning. It's that you have something to believe in.
yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah,
That's it. And whether you support Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Leicester, League Two team, whatever, what you want is something to believe in your own objectives. Now, for a team that normally struggles towards the foot of League Two, it might be trying to push the balls top half and believing that can happen, or even just believing teams get promoted now. Believing at the start of next season, if you're a Burnley or Sheffield United fan next season, believing that 17th is possible. That's shitty, but that's kind of your belief and hoping that that can happen next year. Having something to believe in as an objectivity, or even just believing in what you are. If you're me and Sue just spoken about Reading
yeah.
and their problems, which is a real story to keep an eye on in the next month because that football club is in serious, serious danger. I think it will be all right. But if you ask a Reading fan, like, what do you want to believe in? Well, for them, the biggest thing is ultimately that they've got a football team support next year.
Mate, you've hit the nail on the head with that. Like fucking hell, that should be a quote because I think the goals and objectives change by club, but the belief or the want to believe in something doesn't. Yeah, fucking hell, make it a quote, James Linden,
We
whatever.
leave it there because otherwise we'll talk about it forever. It's an endless conversation. How much should football fandom mean? And we will all feel differently about it. It's not a right or a wrong answer there. let's move on to a different team that's probably believing in something that they didn't possibly believe that they could ever believe in. A Europa League, a Europa Conference League
Conference, yeah.
quarter finalist who I'd heard of Jagiellonia last week. I told you, but I never met any nice looking girls from Slovenia, so I never heard of this lot, mate.
Yeah, they might be playing our friends from Jagiellonia if they go through. So they are.
That would be remarkable.
It would, yeah. I somehow don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, as we covered last week, Jagiellonia are playing Betis, and our friends today are NK Celje, who correct me, Slovenians in the
I
comments.
don't know if I can this time. I thought
No,
it was
I know
Kelje. I
you
don't know.
can't, but I'm sure Slovenians will be able to tell me. Yeah, they're on the other side of, sorry, same side of the draw, but the other tie, and they're playing Fiorentina. They've had a pretty interesting campaign in the Conference League. So so they play Fiorentina. But in terms of the table, where was it they finished? I had it up in front of me. They finished 21st in the table. And obviously in the Conference League, there's only 6 games. But they were on 7 points, and there were 5 teams that finished on 7 points. One of them was Hearts, who didn't make it into the top 24 that went through. But this team has had an interesting 12, 18 months. They literally won the league last year domestically. I think it was the second time in their history they won it. And this season, do you know where they are? I mean, you probably checked, to be fair.
No, I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
actually.
So they won the league last year, and they're now fifth. Um,
I looked at their historical placings over the last decade or so, and fifth came up a lot.
yeah. So yeah, the fact that they've only won it 2 times in their history. One of it was last year, but yeah, they're really struggling this year. And I was trying to look into. I went down a proper rabbit hole with this team, probably more than I have done with any other team. I don't know why. It was just. I think there's something about a team when you literally know nothing, like heard nothing about them, got no preconceived ideas about them. Um, but yeah, they're struggling quite a lot this year. I think the kind of general management of Europe and domestic is one factor. They changed their manager actually. Do you know who their manager is?
I've no idea.
The name Albert Riera. Do you recognize that name?
Oh, we played for Liverpool and don't tell me Espanol.
You're definitely right on Liverpool. You're probably right on Espanyol. The only one I knew was Liverpool. But yeah, he was their manager, but he's come back. Their manager that won the league with them last year, he left. But obviously, you take that into account. Manager changed. They did have some squad turnover, but they're balancing
Vieira
your.
played, sorry, I think Vieira played in the Legends game at Anfield at the
Oh,
weekend.
this weekend did
I
he?
think so.
Oh, possibly. I mean, I saw Gerard, and it's,
It's not improbable. I'm going to check that.
I was saying this with my mates. It's quite weird when you see people you grew up with idolizing, and they've just got man boobs now, and it's a bit, it's a bit odd. It's just looking at Gerald like, Christ, he's put on a bit of timber. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Sorry. Bringing it back to our Slovenian friends, NK Celje. So yeah, they're in the Conference League quarters. They're fifth in the league, having won the league last year. But yeah, their history is pretty cool, to be fair. So they were, as records show, founded in 1919, but a lot of their history began quite early in the 1900s. But obviously, they're from Slovenia, right? But back then, Slovenia wasn't a country. So football in this area, this region, began under the actual Austro-Hungarian ruling. And they so as I talk through this, there's going to be lots of different name changes. So I'll try keep it to a minimum because I may end up confusing myself as well as the listener. But yeah, too long didn't listen. They've had a lot of name changes. But yeah, they started off in the early 1900s under that Austro-Hungarian ruling. And there was a lot of mix of Slovenes and German people, and they were the ones that kind of first made an organized club, which was called SK Cilia SV. And that was founded actually factually in 1906, and that was by the city's German community. It was then after the First World War where the empire obviously dissolved, and then that region became part of the kingdom of the Serbs, the Croats, and the Slovenes, which then later on obviously became Yugoslavia. And that's when the Slovenians actually started their own club, which was SSK Celje, and that was in 1919, which is the team that we now know today as NK Celje. I don't know why I went on such a rabbit hole with these. I just found it quite cool. After World War II, they then many of the Slovenian clubs were actually then disbanded. And in 1967, there was a merger between two clubs who I'm not going to try pronounce. But then they,
Go on.
oh, don't make me do that. It's got the funny like umlauts and stuff on it. Kladivir and Zelensinasa Celje, I think.
They're the sort of ones, you see them interviews outside stadiums. You're like, oh, you signed
Him.
Calaverdo. What do you think of him? Oh, he's amazing. Yeah, I've been watching him for years.
But yeah, they then went through quite a few more name changes due to sponsorships. But then the most notable one actually came in 1992, which I think I didn't actually write this on my notes, which I should have. I think when I was researching, that was maybe the year of Slovenian independence. I'd need to check that, but I think 1992 may have been.
That would probably, I don't know the answer to this, but that would be about right because Yugoslavia got removed from European Championships in 1992, very famously,
Okay,
when
yeah,
obviously Denmark replaced them and went on and won the
yeah,
tournament.
I'm 90% sure that's right because I remember reading it. I just didn't write it down. But yeah, that's when they actually. So 1992, they were then named NK Publicum, and that was quite a common trend. It sounded like in post, I guess what would have been post-independence Slovenia, where a lot of the clubs were seeking like financial stability, and that's where the trend in Slovenia was to seek sponsorships. So it seemed like it was quite a common thing to name your club after the actual sponsor, rather than what we see now as like stands or stadiums and stuff. But then in 2007, they actually dropped that sponsor name, and that's when they became NK Celje. In terms of their achievements, like I said, they've won the domestic league twice. I think the previous one before last year was 1920 season. They've won their Slovenia Cup winners. They've won the Slovenian Cup in the 2004-5 time season. They've won. They've been the runner-up a few times in that cup as well, actually. But they're one of only two clubs in Slovenia that has never been relegated from the top division.
Interesting.
The
Who's the
other
other
two,
one?
Maribor.
It's Maribor. Maribor is the name from that country people be most familiar with.
Oh, is it? Okay. I've
Yeah,
heard the name.
they played my team in Europe. I think Manchester United and a few others in the last sort of 15 years or so.
Fair play. In terms of their stadium, it's a stadium that does meet UEFA standards. So they're
It does now.
okay. Maybe there's a bit of history there that I didn't come across. I don't know too
Didn't
much
they
about.
rebuild it with like one stand originally? That's
I
what I read.
I hadn't seen that. Yeah, I hadn't come across that bit, but yeah, it's called the Stadion de Zelle. And yeah, it holds apparently 13,100, and yeah, it does meet UEFA standards. Yeah, I don't have too much more on the history of the actual stadium and stuff, but yeah, they're doing all right. I think they obviously scraped through in the Conference League to get to where they are. So to be in the quarterfinals is pretty outstanding. But yeah, they're a centenary club, right? So I mean, to have a history of over 100 years is pretty impressive. 2 league titles in 5 seasons. Never been relegated within their domestic country as well. So whenever I'm researching these, I always try to think, okay, who would the English comparison be? I couldn't really think of one, to be honest, but I think they're a club that obviously done amazing last year. I think their season on season aspirations is probably not to win the league every year.
English comparison. Wow. Everton, maybe.
That's a good shout, possibly, yeah. But then I don't know, like Everton are struggling now, whereas NK Celje aren't, right? But yeah,
I
I
just
don't know.
mean in terms of
The history.
their history. They have won a couple of titles. Everton have won a couple of titles in the 80s and stuff. That's all I was thinking. That's Everton fans are. Can you go back to bashing Liverpool fans instead?
Yeah.
Sorry, Evertonians. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I mean, European quarterfinalists, and I have to say this, and I think it would be the same for Jagiellonia. Most people wouldn't have heard of these two teams, and it got me thinking a little bit more about the Conference League because I think many of us are older, more my age than your age. You don't remember the Cup Winners' Cup, right?
No, I don't.
So the Cup Winners' Cup disbanded in kind of 2000 or something like that, I think. And it became a competition, to be honest, a little bit like what the Conference League has become now, in the sense you can look at the start of the season, you think the winner is between 4 or 5 teams most. And I think by the end, I think Chelsea had 1 year in it, and you looked at it, it was like, it's going to be them or Vicenza win it. It was like, how it was like, okay, is there any point? Is the Champions League was expanding, with more teams in it. UEFA Cup was quite bloated, and you had the cup winners going. Now, back in the day, cup competitions held so much more prestige. So if you asked a fan in England in the 60s, what does it mean more to win the league title or the FA Cup? I'm telling you, it was as much the FA
Yeah.
Cup winning that big day. Now, over the course of time, that's changed. But what was also happening a lot with the 90s is you had a lot of powerful teams winning league and cups, and you would have teams that would go in the Cup Winners' Cup, didn't even win the cup, like the runners up would go in. So you were getting some poor quality teams, unfortunately, was going in now. So it was right that that competition it served the purpose of what it originally had the purpose. The first 30 years of the Cup Winners' Cup had great purpose, was great prestige. For example, Manchester United beat Barcelona in the final of that in Rotterdam in 1991. We beat Atletico Madrid in the final, first British team to win a European trophy. Yes, that will never be beaten. So there were big teams in it, but over the time that changed. Now, obviously, in the likes of, Fiorentina is a sizable club who were in it
Yep.
this year. Obviously, Chelsea, a very established and well-known club. I think the idea of the Conference League, ideally, is that you get a winner that is someone like last year, like Olympiacos. A great team wins European trophy. That's kind of the idea. Don't really want Chelsea winning it. But then also the West Ham story is nice because realistically, it was
Yeah, it is.
unlikely that West Ham were unlikely to win the Champions League, Europa League, not impossible. But then for West Ham, it was their first trophy in what 40 odd years or something. So those first 2 years were great stories. And do you know what? Maybe it'll end this year that Chelsea don't win it, and it has another great story. But what it was interesting was when I was looking at Kelge and I was looking at the teams that they played in Europe, and until this season, they'd never played a team from a top five league
Yeah.
in European competition. And I was thinking about that more, and you think it's not just about you at the elite, isn't it? And it's not even just necessarily about you say, "Oh, this team's got no chance of winning it." But how big is it for them? The fact
Oh,
that they
huge.
played Betis in a group game and are now playing Fiorentina in a European quarter final. That's huge. It's huge. These are games that that football club has never had, and if it wasn't for the Conference League, would never have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Because
definitely a
what's
big
happened,
one.
if you look at them historically, they're getting well beat in qualifiers. I think it's either this year or last year. They lost the qualifier to Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, I
I think
remember
it might
seeing
have
that.
been
I
a
think,
Europa League qualifier, maybe. And Shamrock was
yeah.
obviously in the competition for this. But if you look at it, they got well beat, mate. And they've made this the quarterfinals of this. They had a remarkable last 16 game against a Swiss team,
Yeah, was it?
Lungo,
I forgot to mention
who
that. Yeah, it's 5
they
or
they beat
something.
1-0 at home and they lost 5-4 away from home and won on penalties. Bit of a batshit game by the looks of it. They'd ended up getting to um, extra time because the
Yeah.
other team it was a VAR decision and a red card, and they scored the penalty from that in injury time. So look, they're very unlikely to beat Fiorentina, truthfully. But actually, it did make me think more that, yeah, do you know what? It's not just about the elitism in the Conference League. It's about a club like this then grows from playing Spanish and Italian teams and what they can learn from that and wouldn't have had the opportunity. Tottenham obviously didn't just play Maribor from Slovenia. They played the great NS Mura, which Antonio Conte is still being kept up at night about. I don't know if you remember the famous quote that he supposedly went back into the dressing room and said, "Mura, Mura, who the fuck are Mura?" To all the players, and they've just beaten Tottenham, by the way. And that was in the Conference League a few years ago when Antonio Conte had just joined the club and realised very quickly what a massive task he had on his hands. Yeah, good Euro focus that one, Clayton. Thank
Oh,
you, mate.
I thought that was on this day that you were tying up there.
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no. I'll tell you what did happen on this day, and we'll salute the man. I was in a bar in Nottingham on this day 10 years ago, and this isn't what I'm going to do for on this day. But it was a good friend of mine's stag. I was best man, actually, Tottenham fan. And it was kind of mainly Tottenham and Arsenal fans on this stag. England playing Lithuania in a European Championship qualifier in 2015. Harry Kane comes on and scores within a minute. And in the minute between him coming on and scoring, all the Arsenal fans digging us out massively. Despite the fact Kane had scored twice against them in the North London derby the month
What were
beforehand.
they digging you out about?
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, big leagues now and all
Oh,
this.
right.
He ain't going to be good enough. The looks on their faces when Kane scored were pretty much his first touch for England. And has now got over 70, 10 years later. I salute you, Harry, even though you left my football
I
club.
think I remember that. Was it from a corner or something? His first
No,
goal.
it was across from the left and just arrived at the back
Header, right?
post. Yeah, and keeper
Yeah, I
kind
think
of
I
bundled. It
remember it.
wasn't like a aesthetically brilliant goal. Goalkeeper bundled it into the side of the net. But yeah, that was great. It was in a pub in Nottingham singing "Is One of Our Own," and I think we might have made an escape route fairly quickly afterwards. But on this day is an England game. It's not that one. You alluded to it earlier, saying that there was a manager who made his England debut in March. And I also mentioned his team earlier in this podcast, the great entertainers. But England were not under Kevin Keegan. Kevin Keegan made his debut as England manager in a game against Poland on this day in 1999, Clates, 26 years ago. Remember it well?
Ha! Absolutely, like it was yesterday.
No, you do not. Keegan had replaced the disgraced Glenn Hoddle, and walked into a situation with England that wasn't great in qualifying. In fact, England were kind of struggling. We're in a group with Sweden, Poland, and Bulgaria. England had lost their opener in Sweden. Paul Ince had got sent off and lost 2-1. And they also drew at home to Bulgaria 0-0. This Poland game was particularly important. Poland and Sweden only played twice in the group at this point, but won both their first games. And Bulgaria had a little bit of pedigree, having obviously got to the World Cup semi-finals in 1994, as well as Sweden had. And we had a history of difficult games against Poland in the 90s, particularly. I remember us having a game in, I presume it was in Warsaw in 97, and it was the first ever night of Channel 5,
Oh wow.
and they had their premier game, their premier program was like Poland against England in the World Cup qualifier. And England were outstanding that night, 1 2-0. Shearer and Sheringham scored. I remember Rob Lee playing really well that night, actually. They were great. Poland was always an awkward team to beat, still are, actually. One of them, you go, I'll take the 1-0 now. It's always has felt like that against them. So Poland come to Wembley. This is still the old Wembley. You get knocked down in Keegan's last game, some 18 or so months later, in the pissing rain when Dietmar Hamann beat David Seaman from range. So England go into this qualifier pretty much having to win. Team strong. I'll read it to you. David Seaman in goal. Back four: Gary Neville, Martin Keown, Sol Campbell, Graham Lasso. Tim Sherwood making his England debut in central midfield alongside Paul Scholes. David Beckham on the right. Steve McManaman on the left. Up front, Alan Shearer and Andy Cole. And for those who know on this day from previous Clayton and James shows, will remember Keegan sold Cole, somewhat to the bewilderment of many Newcastle fans. Amazing stat that you won't quite be able to believe. This was Andy Cole's first ever start for
Oh
England.
wow.
Incredibly. And you possibly get an idea why when you look at the bench. Some of it's strong, some of it not so much. So on the bench, sub goalkeeper Nigel Martin, Phil Neville, brother of Gary, obviously. Gareth Southgate's there. Rio Ferdinand, Jamie Redknapp, Ray Parlour would come on for his debut, Clayton, in this game. The only striker England had on the bench, and this is an uncapped England player, was Chris Armstrong of Tottenham.
And he never got a cap, no?
Never got on. He was in the squad because every other English forward, and trust me, England had a lot of good forwards in the late 90s, they were all injured, mate.
Oh wow.
All of them. Armstrong at this point wasn't even really first choice for Tottenham. So it was one of them. He got called up, but no, never won an England cap. So that's one of them for the trivia books. Players who got called up for England and never got a cap. Chris Armstrong falls into that camp. Anyway, England take the lead 10 minutes in, shooting towards not the tunnel end, the opposite end, so right to left as you'd look at it on the old camera. Andy Cole and Shearer link up. Ball gets prodded through to Paul Scholes. Goalkeeper's coming out. Scholes thinks it over him. Lovely. 1-0 England. 10 minutes later, it's 2. And it's the hand of Ginger, I suppose, because Scholes scores again, but in somewhat controversial circumstances. Immense cross from David Beckham from the right. You know, he used to like wrap it around people, like use people. You know, you see people bend it into the far corner. It's like Kane's goal actually on Friday night. It was like waited for the
All right.
defender to come across and then bent it around him. Bex used to do that with crosses. It was outrageous. He's put this thing on a sixpence. That's a question I've seen for the Patreon Q&A next Monday. Yes, sixpence was real value back in my dad's day, not in my day. Wraps it around. Paul Scholes arrives. And I think he tries to punch it in, Clates.
Oh,
It
I think
arrives at like chest height and he arcs his body. And it's one of them you think, has he chested it in? Has he
but
just
he's
moved his
punched it.
chest to it? It kind of, I
Is it
don't know if
conclusive in highlights or not really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
There's
right.
one
Okay.
angle you can see it, It's definitely like come off his hand. Like there's no way it would count now in a VAR era because clearly it definitely strikes his hand as well. Looks like a closed fist when he does it as well though, which gives you the element of thinking he's meant it. We know Maradona kind of tipped it in. Scholes looks like he's trying to give it like a bit of a jab. So he turns his body as if he's chesting it, and he's got his hand like locked up into his chest. And he kind of arcs. I don't know if he's trying to chest it and that's just what his hand did, but I think he meant it. And it comes off his fist, and there's only one angle you can see it from. It hits his fist and it kind of smashes him in the jaw and flies in the corner. And obviously the Polish keeper's like, well, that's handball. All the Polish players like, what's going on here? And Scholes wheels. You know when you see players now celebrate goals who they know is going to get disallowed by VAR? Scholes runs away a
Just
little bit
shameless.
like that.
Oh,
Like,
okay, right.
I'm going to run over to Bex and I hope I'm going to get away with this. Sure enough, he does. So England in a very commanding position, 2-0 up. They concede a goal to Jerzy Bruszek. And I have to say, I did check back on the Polish lineup and I can't remember any of them. Really tidy finish this, by the way, after the winger had got beyond Gary Neville and pulled the ball back from their left-hand side. But England would win this game 3-1 after many missed chances. Cole particularly profligate. But Paul Scholes would complete his hat-trick with 20 minutes to go. England living up to their mantra of beautiful new football under Keegan. Take a long throw through Gary Neville on the right-hand side. Shearer wins the first header, flicks it on, and Paul Scholes absolutely buries the second header. It's one of them which drops him, he sees it come in, and it's the whole neck muscles, everything. He's give it a lot. Buries it bottom corner. Hat trick for Paul Scholes. In a rare good day for England, because I think his England career largely underwhelmed. It helped here that he played in his position and didn't have two other players who both of you can guess what the names are playing alongside him. Not that Tim Sherwood's England career was particularly long and prosperous. This would prove to be, interestingly, it's not about the game, it's about our memory of what happened in that qualifying. And I think it's worth remembering when we think about the conversation earlier about how easy England qualifying feels now. Trust me, it wasn't because they
Yeah,
used to put us through the absolute shitter.
definitely.
This was the only game in the group that we won that wasn't
What?
against Luxembourg.
Oh. Who remind me of the other team? Sorry, was it Sweden?
Bulgaria, Poland, and Sweden. We drew 1-1 in Bulgaria, having already lost to Sweden. We drew 0-0 at home to Sweden as well. And I think Scholes might have got sent off in that one, maybe at home to Sweden. Someone else got sent off. And we had to win in Poland in the last game to be confirmed at a place. So this was the European Championship. Obviously, it expanded in '96 to 16 teams. There's 16 teams qualified. So obviously, it's now 24, and the top two went automatically through. Right, so you don't even finish first.
Yeah.
It's top two. Sorry, second would go into a playoff. First automatically through, second into a playoff. Sweden have won the group, right? We win in Poland. We're clear. We're in. We're in the playoff, right? We lose. We're third in the group. We are out. We've got to win, though, really. We draw 0-0. David Batty gets sent off. It's an awful game of football. Both teams have decent chances, which includes one Polish player heading straight at David Seaman from 4 yards. Probably should have lost. Drew 0-0. Level on points with Poland with a better goal difference. Here's the kicker, the bit that I didn't even remember. Poland still had a game to go.
Oh shit! So it wasn't even confirmed for us.
No, all Poland had to do was draw in Sweden to finish above us.
And what did they do?
Lost 2-0.
Oof.
So we got the playoff and we got Scotland in the playoff. We won 2-0 at Hampden. Guess who scored twice?
Skulls.
Correct. Sol Campbell actually played right back. Jamie Redknapp played on the left and midfield. Yeah, this wasn't what it was meant to be under Keegan, who was a unanimous choice when he got the job, right? People thought this is going to be great. England will play great attacking football. It never happened. We were a disaster at the Euros afterwards. I mean, we got through against Scotland by the skin of our teeth. We won 2-0 at Hampden. We lost 1-0 at home. Don Hutchinson scored, and Scotland should have got to extra time. It was so much better than England that night. And I remember Keegan's face. He shook hands. Must have been with Craig Brown afterwards. And his face was like haunting look on him. It was like, I'm not sure this is going to work. And this was only like 6 months in. We go to the Euros, go 2-0 up against Portugal. I remember being in the house singing, It's Coming Home. Yeah, we were 3-2 down like an hour later. We got absolutely battered. Shearer scored against Germany in the second game. We won 1-0. And it was like such a big moment because it was the first time we'd beat Germany in a major tournament, 66. Then we only had to draw with Romania and pissed it out the ball, lost 3-2.
Jesus Christ.
We were so bad. He played like Dennis Wise wide on the left of midfield. We were so ordinary. That's probably the worst thing the team was saying, I think. That
Wow.
Euro 2000 team was so average. It had a couple of players that were just about to come through. Like Steven Gerrard was in the squad, Rio Ferdinand was in the squad. They hadn't quite established yet. And there was obviously more that was going to come in the next campaign, like Ashley Cole being another example. And there were others as well. But yeah, that Keegan England team was so ordinary. It was just
Dreadful.
so far away from what everybody thought it was. It was negative. They couldn't keep the ball. It didn't matter who they played. So they ended up getting to the tournament by the skin of their teeth and probably been better off if they hadn't bothered. Giant.
Yeah, you're right.
Lost the first qualifier to Germany, qualifying for the World Cup. Enter Sven. And then suddenly Sven arrived and it was like Cole, Ferdinand, Gerard are all ready to play. And then obviously famously was the 5-1 in Germany like a year later.
Nice.
That's on this day from, I guess, Kevin Keegan's second best game for England from 26 years ago.
What an era he had as manager. Nicely done.
Thank you very much, mate. I think, are we returning to Wednesday next week?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Because it's Thursday today. Good. Let's do that. Ask James tomorrow, scheduled for 12 p.m. UK time as we approach this big FA Cup weekend and its impact on FPL. And I promise you, we will get back to some proper FPL chat from Monday. But thanks again, Clayton. Remember, everyone, smash a like, hit the sub button. If you're on the audio, a 5-star review goes a really long way. Please be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.